everyone, and I thank you guys so much for tuning in to yet another episode of My Orchid Adventures with me, Maria Young. So today in this episode, what we're going to be doing is yet another propagation method. Now, if you guys remember correctly, not too long ago, we just did a propagation method on this Catasetum right here, and it was a fairly simple propagation method. As a matter of fact, it was easy as pie, no strain or stress at all. Again, very simple. I wish it was that simple for everything, right? Well, guess what? Sometimes it isn't that simple. And in this case, we are going to be propagating this orchid, this Catasetum type of orchid right here, but it's just going to be a bit more extreme. As a matter of fact, far more extreme. And I think it's a propagation method that many of us just don't know about, or perhaps we do know about it, but we also do know how extreme and how surgically involved it is, so we just choose to not take that challenge. But you guys know that I am a person that definitely loves to grow and learn and discover, so I am willing to take the challenge for you guys. As a matter of fact, I'm taking one for the team in this case. Now, I have never done this before. I've only seen examples through pictures of the way that this is done. So indeed, this is a trial and error basis, but I have confidence in the fact that we can always learn and grow and discover new things. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So let's go ahead and get it started, and let's do it right now. Bam, 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 and boom. And this orchid right here is going to be the test subject of the day. And indeed, it is the orchid that we are going to do the extreme propagation on. And this particular orchid right here is a Catasetum orchid glade crossed with a Sanochi's chloroquilon. And these are the tools and materials that we will be using today. As you can see in this container, we have moistened sphagnum moss. Also, we have another container that's filled with a mixture of potting media for orchids. We have a lid that's going to sit on top of that. We have a bottle of peroxide, some water, some scissors, also a knife and a cutting board. Oh, and I did forget a very important ingredient. This is my aloe vera plant right here, and we need to pick a fresh leaf from her. Indeed, a very important ingredient that we will be using today. Okay, so let's go ahead and take this out of the container right there. And all we're going to do now is just go through here, massage it, take it apart, and we're really just trying to get this media off of this orchid. So we're going to do that by just massaging through here and getting into the meat of the matter right here and right now. Alrighty, and here we are. We've basically taken all of the media out of the roots, and look here, look at that. This is already separated, and all we're doing now is just taking it apart. Boom, that easy. All three separated. And all that we're doing now is we're taking a sanitized pair of scissors, and we're going to go ahead and completely chop all of the roots of this Catasetum. And we're going to chop it right down to the actual Catasetum bulb. So we're not leaving any type of roots on here at all. And now we simply put them in this watered container and just clean them off really, really well. And while they are in water, I'm saturating the sheath material too, because I want to work on getting that sheath off just to see what we're working with underneath. So the bulbs are now cleaned up really, really well. We also sprayed them down with peroxide, and I took the time and effort to remove as much of the sheath material that was on here as possible, so we indeed can see what we're working with, because that's going to be the key indication of where we want to cut these Catasetum bulbs. Okay, so now it's time for a propagation lesson 101, and I'm going to use some terms in the garden world as well used on regular plants, because surprisingly a lot of our orchids actually work in much of the same way as the garden plants work in the aspect of propagation. And what a lot of gardeners will actually look out for in many of the plants that they want to propagate are the joint areas. And we will notice those joint areas as a ring around the orchid, as you can see right here. And these rings actually have a multi-function of what they can do. And what we can commonly find growing near or on the ring around the orchid would either be keikis, new growths, roots, or even spikes. So with that in mind, that is really going to help us to decide on exactly where we should make the cuttings. Now, raised nodes or perhaps even dried sheath material near or on the ring really indicates that those are possible growth points on the orchid, and new growths can indeed come from them. Now, when I do say growth points, that doesn't necessarily mean that these will automatically grow into new growths. As a matter of fact, there are many orchids that will create these growth points or these areas of possible growth just as a secondary backup plan in case something happens and these need to spring into action. And only then will these come and create whatever the orchids need them to be. And the way that we're going to find the growth points is definitely looking at the ring around the orchid, because normally they will grow near or around or on the actual ring itself. And also recognizing the shape of these growth points. As you can see, they have somewhat of a teardrop shape, also a bit triangular, and they're normally pointing upwards. So here you can see one. You can also see one up here. And then if we move on further, there is a teeny weeny one right here. And this was actually covered up by extra sheath material around the Catasetum orchid that if I had not removed it, we would not be capable of seeing it right now. So that's why it's important to remove the extra sheath material so you indeed can find them and know exactly where we should make our cutting. You may also be capable of finding these new growth points nearer to the base area and sometimes even intermingled within the roots. So be mindful of that when you're cutting off the roots, because you can accidentally cut some of those growth points off, as I did. Now, this particular bulb right here is the latest growth on the Catasetum type of orchid, so we're not going to be doing anything with this one. As a matter of fact, we're going to wait till the new growth appears and we're going to have this potted up and grown as normal. On this particular bulb right here, we are noticing growth points right there, and also right there. You can barely see it, but one is right there. Now, if we turn this around, we will also notice that there are some growth points right here as well. And you are finding it right there, and I think perhaps right there. So we indeed are going to be very mindful of those growth points when we make our cuttings. And I'm going to make about 3 cuttings on here, probably like right here and probably right here. So we'll have 3 pieces, and we're going to give them a good amount, probably 2 rings around each piece, and that's going to give us a better chance of getting a growth on each piece. Okay, folks, and here we are, finally at this point here, and I have to tell you, I am a little bit on jitters, but I really inspected this orchid, and I definitely know where I want to cut it. So we're going to go ahead and go for the gusto, and we're just going to do it, okay, folks? So here we go. I am going to make the cut right here. There you go, that easy. Make a clean cut. And then I want to go right here, and I'm also going to make a clean cut right there. Okay, so here we are with the second one, but I'm going to live a little bit on the edge with this one. I think I'm going to cut it a little slimmer on this one, so we're going to get more shorter cuttings. And I'm going to cut right here. There you go. Also going to cut right here. And let's go ahead and cut right here. There you go. And let us get a closer look at the actual cutting itself. As we can see, the cuts are very clean, very precise, and also if we take a look at the bulb, we can see that there are growth points, one right there, and turning it around we will see the second one right there. So we made sure that each of these cuttings had at least 2 growth points so that we have a better chance of getting some new growths. And here we have the aloe vera leaf that was so freshly picked out of my garden. And just in case you didn't already know, this is considered a miracle plant because indeed it has so many different benefits. Now, one of the benefits that I love most is the fact that it is considered a disinfectant, an antibacterial, anti-germ, and indeed it fights infections. So that is what we are going to be needing it for. But on top of that, it also has properties where it's good for revitalizing. So indeed, it'll add some energy to our plants. So great benefits, wouldn't you say, especially for something so natural. And I have used this before on many of my propagations. So indeed, it seems to work. And indeed, this is something that we can definitely use. So all I've done is split the leaf. And of course, I kind of mushed it up just a little bit to get the actual gel to be capable of sealing the plant. And that's all we're going to be doing here, is allowing the actual fluid from the plant to disinfect and also allow it to seal. And now it is a simple matter of the waiting game, because we definitely want to make sure that these open wounds will be dried and sealed before we go to the second phase. And in the second phase, we are going to be using some moisture to try to induce the new growth. And we don't want that moisture to infect or invade these open wounds and cause infections. So we're going to have to be patient and we're going to have to wait. And I don't exactly know how long I'm going to have to go through this. Again, a trial and error process. So I'm going to wait until I definitely know for sure that it is completely dried and sealed. And the way that I'm going to dry out these cuttings, I'm going to leave these in an area with bright shade, also in an area with good air movement and good airflow to assist in the drying process. And what better place than my garden? So in the daytime, I'm going to leave these outdoors in my garden, and at nighttime, I will bring them indoors, and that process will go on until it is completely dry. And we have now arrived to the second phase. As you can see in this container, we have moistened sphagnum moss. In this container, it's actually a mixture of different types of media. We have some bark in here, also some perlite and some coal. And if we take a close look, you may even see some crumpled up fern bark material in here as well. This is going to lay at the base, and then we're going to take the sphagnum moss and we're going to put it right at the very top. Just go ahead and fill it. And this is going to be the bed that the Catasetum propagation cuttings will sit in. And once they sit on that bed, we're going to also put a lid on top of it, and that's going to retain the moisture within this container and hopefully induce some of those new growths that we are so wanting. And that is going to be the second phase. We're going to leave it in these containers, of course, opening this up every once in a while to get some fresh air, but we're definitely going to leave them there. How long it may be, I'm not quite sure. They say it can be as soon as 2 weeks before you can start seeing some growth, but sometimes it can expand on to several months. So in our case, we're just going to have to wait and see. But indeed, we have high expectations here, and we indeed plan on seeing it through. Now, where we want to keep this container would be in an area with bright shade. We don't want any direct sunlight because we don't want it to get too hot in here and risk the possibility that our cuttings will be baked. And we also don't want to keep this in a darkened area where we will increase the probability of mold and also fungus growth. And from time to time, we may need to spray this down with some water just to add some moisture in here, but we're going to do that as needed. Again, this is going to be covered, and you'd be surprised at how much it will retain the moisture. So if we don't need to add any more water, we'll just leave it as is. Now, again, I mentioned from time to time, we do want it to air out a little bit. We don't want any type of mold or fungus to grow in there. So allow a little bit of breathing time in here is going to do it some good. And that is the way that I'm going to be conducting this extreme Catasetum propagation. So I do hope that you guys will stay tuned for more and we'll discover and learn together. And there you have it, folks. That is an extreme Catasetum propagation wrap. Now, didn't I tell you guys it was going to be pretty extreme? And indeed, it was extreme. I am so glad that we were able to get through it and get through it together. And indeed, it was pretty intense, but you know what? This is going to be such a great learning experience for us all. Now, you guys have to let me know exactly what you guys think about this propagation method. Do you guys think think it will work. And of course, if you guys have done it already, please let us know what your results were and your experience with it. We would love to learn from you guys. That's what it's all about. And this particular orchid is a Catasetum orchid glade clost? Yep, all in a day's work of filming. Shut your trapper keeper already. Can't you see I'm trying to film? But in this case, it is going to be Marfor? Really? Marfor. Marfor. Far more. And that, my friend, is a complete and why, oh why must it be this way? Get it together, get it right, girl. It is an extreme Catasetum propagation. Extreme Catasetum propagation. You can get this, you can handle this, you can do it, girl. And that, my friend, is a complete propagation orchid community, whatever. Just get it right. I thank you guys so much for tuning in to yet another episode of My Orchid Adventures. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Also, if you guys want to write or send me something, you can do it at the address below. And of course, guys, I am on Facebook. Join me there at My Orchid Adventures right on Facebook. And I'm on eBay. You guys know that. If you guys are looking for some phenomenal orchids, check me out on eBay. I thank you guys so much. You guys already know, indeed, I do love you guys all. Mwah!